Good morning all. Christmas is fast approaching, and so I've been shopping for Christmas decorations, and I found this in Wilko, multicoloured projector lights. £45. No, it was reduced to 15, and it's not surprising to me that it wasn't selling, because look at this, it just looks really dull. In fact, my camera is enhancing this effect. Actually, let me see if I can make it as dull as it actually is. If I press that there, yes, that's kind of how it looks in real life. It's just not a very good advertisement for multicolored projector lights. I mean, why did they project them onto, well, red brick? This is a red brick house. There are plenty of white rendered houses in the UK. They could have projected it onto white. It would have looked so much better. And then there's this specification on the side. It says total length of cable 5 meters, number of bulbs 3. Well, I mean, there were kits of LED light strings in Wilko, 600 lights, 1,000 LEDs for, I don't know, less than this price, 30 quid or something. And then you get this, which has 3 LEDs, and it's £45. It's not surprising to me that this didn't sell, and hence the reduction to £15. Anyway, what I think is that if this is worth 45, but I only paid 15, I got myself a bit of a bargain. Now, this thing is mains. It is indoor or outdoor, but if you look at this, it says output voltage DC 15 volts. I'm thinking LiPo. So yeah, LiPo, 14.8 volts. Now, I'm not sure about leaving one of these outside in the wind and the rain, but maybe if there's some space in the unit and this would fit inside it, we wouldn't need to use mains at all. So without further ado, let's cut into this thing and see what's inside the box. I've no idea. I've not had a look in here yet. Oh, the lid won't come off. So, will I be amazed or will I be really disappointed? Right, well, I wasn't really expecting this, but yeah, this is the projector unit. 3, possibly 1 watt, possibly a bit more LEDs there on an aluminium plate, and then a motorized glass or plastic, probably, rotating thing, which just creates these sort of square and diamond-y patterns and throws light out onto whatever it's pointing at. So mains power supply, fairly standard these days, connector for Christmas decorations, and a spike so that you can shove that in there and stick it in the grass, or you can screw it down onto a brick wall or something like that. Well, I think we need to power this thing up. Yeah, that's actually quite bright. That's brighter than I thought it was going to be. That's actually quite nice. Let's get a bit of something white. That's a good effect. Yes, I was sitting here before I started the shot thinking, why is that mostly green and there's very little blue and red? I wonder. But yeah, you fire that at something white. That's actually not bad, is it? That's pretty nice. I like that. Right, 3.3 watts it's drawing, so my guess is that they are 1 watt LEDs, red, green and blue, and then the motor is drawing the remaining 300 milliwatts. Why is this thing so dim? Is this one of these annoying ones with a, oh yeah, it's got batteries in there, they're probably all flat. Yeah, 3.3 watts, so that figures. Quite close to the rated power of this mains power block of 3.75 watts, but yeah, it doesn't seem to be getting warm. That seems all right. This was really quiet to start with. It's gone a bit noisier now. Let me bring it up near the camera's microphone, see if you can hear it. Maybe even touch it against the phone camera thing. Yeah, that's become quite noisy now. I mean, clearly there's a motor and a gearbox in there. But not a bad effect, is it? I quite like that. They're all offset, of course, aren't they? So there's the centre of the blue, circle. That looks like the center of the green circle, and the center of the red circle is up there because of course that's how they're positioned inside this rotating dome. Well, I think it's about time we got inside this thing. Right, so this is all safe low voltages, well, low voltage, 15 volts going in from that power supply. I trust that power supply. After all, this is had to go through Wilko's rigorous product evaluation stage. This is not a direct import. This has got all the CE approvements, accreditations, all that sort of stuff. So it should be fine. Now, of course, there's an O-ring there. Yeah, this white plastic, rubber. There's a bit of a split in it there, but yeah, so that's sealed against moisture ingress. Now, can I go any further with it still on? Probably not, actually. Well, I might be able to. Let's see if I can undo this screw here. Yes, I can. And there are the three LEDs. Now, they're way too bright for the camera. Let me see if I can readjust the exposure. Oh, yeah. So you can see the green, red and blue LEDs and the rotating shaft of the motorized thingy bob. So now if I undo these two screws here, is this all going to come out neatly, or is it going to be stuck in there on wires which I can't move? Let's undo this bolt, see how the wiring is done. Oh, there's another O-ring there. Oh, God. Yeah, actually that will allow me to slide a bit of wire up there so that I can move this plate forward. I do think though that I need to switch this off now because that aluminium plate is probably quite warm. Well, it's getting warm, it's not that hot, but yeah, it is starting to get warm. Yeah, that's quite interesting. There's actually quite a bit of wire in there, and I presume that's because they had to have this much wire available so they could lower this unit into this box, and then they just shoved it in down inside there so they don't have to move this thing. I presume there's a little grommet in there. Right, so I need to undo those two screws. I think I'll get my bigger screwdriver for that. £45 though, that's quite a lot for this sort of thing. I mean, I would expect to get it for more like that £15 price I paid if I just bought it as a direct import. So is this really any better quality because it's come through the official channels and been properly CE approved? Who knows? Right, let's feed a bit of wire through. So that comes out. And, oh, well, that's really incredibly simple. There's very little in here. £45. Do you know, £45, probably most of that is the copper in the 5 meter length of wire. That's really not £45 worth there, is it? Little motor and gearbox, 3 static LEDs, and a rotating plastic domey thing. There's not much in there, is there? And I was just thinking, because there's no electronics on this metal plate, so how are they doing constant current? And it occurred to me that must be being done down in here, so there must be a circuit board in there, unless of course it's being done in the power supply, but I doubt it because that's pretty much an off-the-shelf unit, so there must be something in there. So I think that's going to have to come open, because here I suspect these 3 LEDs are in series. Yes, that would make sense, wouldn't it, with 15 volt supply. The motor is going to be getting constant current, but that doesn't really matter as long as you limit the current to the LEDs. The motor won't draw an excess current because of resistance in its windings, but the LEDs certainly would if you went over voltage, because their resistance drops to virtually nothing once you pass the forward voltage threshold. So I'm expecting to see something in there. Let's have a look. No, all we have there is a rubber washer, some gunk in the hole, and a sort of cable clamp grip to stop that pulling through. No, that's one continuous piece of cable. So no, there's no constant current. So that must be in this power unit. This must be a constant current LED power supply. Is it? So this is a model JT DC 15 volt 3.75 watts E. Now, is that some sort of designation that this is actually limited to that power or limited to a certain current? I mean, there's no way I can know. Now, this looks like it's probably sealed at the top there. I mean, I could break this thing apart, but if the chips are all sort of anonymous or scraped or coated in black stuff, we're not really going to know what they are and whether or not it's constant current. No, I think the answer is to poke a couple of wires in there. It's actually even marked plus and minus, and stick them on an electronic DC load. Right, a couple of bits of wire, red and black, so I know which is pos and which is neg. I think if I just strip these back and bend them over on the outside of that insulation, that might just sort of fit in there. Positive. Yeah, well, I'm sure I can force that in there so that it makes a reasonably good contact. Right, electronic DC load. Let's power that up with 12 volts from my solar power system. Now, is it in battery discharge mode? I think it might be, actually, because I think that's what I last used. Let's power it up with the button held down. No, it's not that. It's let's power it up with that button held down. No, error 6. What's error 6? Oh, I think it might be over voltage or something. Right, that's now working. 15 volts coming out of this power supply at 200 milliamps. If I turn that up to 300 milliamps, this starts flashing and the voltage has collapsed away completely. Now, these LEDs are going to, I think 1 watt LEDs draw about 300 milliamps. I think I can move that to that second digit, so I can go 210 milliamps and then start increasing that. Oh, and that drops away really quickly, doesn't it? So that's 7 volts at 250 milliamps, 12 or 13 volts at 240 milliamps. So yeah, this is definitely a current limited power supply. 240 milliamps, we've got 12.8 volts. Take that up to 250 milliamps, that's dropped to 7. And 260 milliamps, it's collapsed away to nothing. So yeah, this is a special current limited power supply, which has to be used presumably with this device. If you find another one of these power supplies with the same 15 volt output and it's not current limited, well, bang, it could be, couldn't it? Yeah, so these LEDs are not getting 300 milliamps. It's 15 volts output at 220 milliamps. At 230, 15 volts, 240 we're down to 12.5, and 250 milliamps down to 6.8. Now we've got a red, a blue and a green LED in series there. So the red is about 2 volts, I think. Blue 3.5, that's 5.5. Green somewhere in between, maybe 2.5. About 8 volts, I suppose, for the LED string. So yeah, they're going to be getting somewhere around 250 milliamps. I suppose that's about right. So yeah, you don't want to mix and match these power supplies between your various Christmas decorations because this one is very definitely a current limited power supply. So yeah, there's not much to this, is there? Little 15 volt or 12 volt or something geared motor on the back there. 3 LEDs on the front. Space for 6 actually, so they've not fitted the other 3. Let's take a closer look at these LEDs, I think. 2 of the LEDs, the ones on the right there, are the green and the blue, and they have very similar looking dies, quite a small die. The red one, the one on the left, has a much bigger die in there. Can I see some red? Is that got red phosphor? Or is that just a trick of the light and that's just a red emitter? That might have some red phosphor in it, I don't know. So yeah, disappointingly little going on inside here, just a motor and 3 LEDs. And the electronics, the sort of clever bit, the current limiting, is done in the power supply. Quite surprised at that. So I was kind of thinking of cutting this cable and putting an XT60 plug-and socket in there so that I could either connect it to the mains power supply or connect it to a LiPo, but of course that's not going to work, is it? Because if the current limiting is done inside this power unit, there won't be any current limiting between the LiPo and this. And since I've worked out that this is only going to draw, well, it only needs across those 3 LEDs something in the order of 8, possibly 10 volts, then 14.8 is going to cook those. Won't cook the motor because that's kind of got its own internal resistance, but it's going to cook the LEDs almost instantly. But yeah, £45. I don't think I'd have been very happy if I'd paid £45 for this thing. 15, yeah, I think that's kind of acceptable. It's quite a nice effect, and if you shine it on white, then you do get a reasonably good balance of the red, the green and the blue. Now, I'm not going to be forgiven, am I, if I don't take this outside at night. Well, it's not night yet, it's still daytime, and shine it on the white rendered bit of my house, which is the kitchen at the back, and show you what it looks like. So I'll be back when it gets dark, and that won't be long. And that's the effect, and I think that looks pretty good on a white wall. Yeah, not too shabby. Merry Christmas.